Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar Intelligence. Today we're taking a deep, detailed look at the current state of the Iraqi dinar, the official exchange rate policy, the widening gap with the parallel market, and the political and economic forces shaping the currency as we move through early 2026. If you follow this channel, you know we focus on facts, context, and realistic analysis, not hype, not rumors, but grounded information that helps you understand what's really happening with Iraq's monetary system. Let's start with the official position. The Central Bank of Iraq has reiterated that the Iraqi dinar's official exchange rate remains around 1,300 Iraqi dinars per US dollar. This is the same rate that has been in place since early 2023, and it is the rate being used in the 2026 federal budget for government accounting purposes. Officials have emphasized clearly and repeatedly that there are no plans for a formal devaluation of the dinar. According to Governor Ali al-Alaq, Iraq's foreign currency reserves are strong, currently around 100 billion US dollars, and monetary policy remains focused on stability. However, while the official peg is set at approximately 1,300, the real-world system is slightly more layered. The central bank buys dollars at around 1,300 dinars. It then sells dollars to commercial banks at roughly 1,310. Those banks, in turn, provide dollars to businesses and individuals at around 1,320. This tiered approach is not new. It's designed to manage liquidity, maintain banking margins, and ensure a controlled flow of foreign currency through official channels. The CBI insists this system supports transparency and financial discipline. In fact, the central bank has been very active in supplying dollars. Between January and October of 2025, it reportedly sold approximately $67.3 billion through its foreign exchange facilities to meet demand for trade and remittances. That's a significant figure, and it demonstrates that the CBI is not restricting supply in an artificial way. Instead, it has been injecting dollars into the banking system to meet legitimate economic needs. But now we move to the other side of the story, the parallel market. By late February 2026, the Iraqi dinar was trading significantly weaker in street markets compared to the official rate. Reports from Baghdad and Erbil indicated rates around 1,530 to 1,540 dinars per US dollar. That represents roughly a 15 to 18% premium compared to the official 1,300 to 1,220 range. Earlier in January, the parallel rate even briefly touched around 1,500 under heightened market anxiety. This widening gap between the official rate and the street rate, often referred to as the delta, has become one of the most discussed economic issues in Iraq right now. Analysts note that while the difference has eased slightly from the January peak, it remains far wider than historical norms. For years, Iraq worked to narrow this gap. Now it has expanded again. The key question is why. According to spokespeople from the Central Bank of Iraq, the primary driver of the parallel market weakness is not a shortage of reserves and not a policy shift toward devaluation. Instead, they argue that the gap is largely driven by private demand occurring outside the official banking system. Specifically, they point to importers attempting to bypass new customs regulations and compliance systems. Let's unpack the broader context. One major factor is political tension. In January 2026, reports emerged that U.S. envoys warned Iraqi political leaders that oil revenue dollar transfers could be frozen if Iran-linked parties were included in the new government. This warning came during sensitive post-election negotiations and power-sharing discussions. The mere possibility of disruptions to Iraq's oil revenue flows created uncertainty in currency markets. Traders and businesses feared that if dollar inflows were interrupted, supply could tighten quickly. Even though no actual freeze occurred, the threat itself was enough to trigger precautionary behavior. When market participants sense risk, they often rush to secure dollars. This surge in demand can quickly push up parallel market rates. Currency markets are driven not just by fundamentals, but by expectations and fears. At the same time, Iraq has been undergoing significant banking reforms. Dozens of banks were sanctioned or barred from participating in U.S. dollar trading due to compliance concerns. These actions are part of a broader effort to improve anti-money laundering standards and increase financial transparency. The CBI maintains that these reforms are necessary to modernize Iraq's financial system and align it with international standards. However, in the short term, restricting certain banks' access to dollar transactions inevitably reduces supply in parts of the market. When some institutions are removed from the dollar pipeline, businesses that relied on them may turn to informal channels. That shift increases pressure on the parallel market. Another major development came at the start of 2026 with customs and revenue reforms. On January 1st, the government launched the UN-backed Asacuda customs system and increased import tariffs ranging from 5 to 30%. The goal was to improve revenue collection, reduce corruption, and formalize trade processes. While these reforms aim to strengthen the economy long-term, they also introduced immediate costs for importers. Protests from merchants followed. Trade. Analysts reported that many importers scrambled to secure dollars unofficially to cover higher import costs and navigate new procedures. One economist noted that as the Asacuda system rolled out, the parallel dollar rate jumped from roughly 1,400 to about 1,500 dinars. This suggests that trade-related demand significantly contributed to the street market spike. Local reporting indicated that central bank officials themselves acknowledged these trade financing behaviors as a major cause of the gap. In other words, the CBI is saying, this is not about reserves running out. It's about segments of the private sector choosing, or being forced, to operate outside official channels during a period of adjustment. Now let's take a broader look at Iraq's reserve position. As of October 2025, foreign currency reserves were reported at approximately 126.9 trillion dinars, equivalent to around 97.6 billion US dollars. That is a substantial buffer. These reserves are primarily built from oil export revenues, which continue to be the backbone of Iraq's economy. With reserves near the $100 billion mark, the central bank argues it has ample capacity to defend the peg if necessary. In traditional exchange rate economics, a peg is only as strong as the reserves backing it. If a central bank has insufficient reserves, speculators may attack the currency. But Iraq's current reserve level provides a significant defensive shield. That said, maintaining a peg in a volatile political environment is never simple. The exchange rate is not only an economic variable, it is also deeply political. A devaluation would increase the dinar value of oil revenues, potentially helping government finances in the short term. But it would also raise the cost of imports and fuel inflation, a politically sensitive outcome in a country where many citizens rely on imported goods. The CBI has made it clear that it will not use an exchange rate shift to plug fiscal gaps. Instead, authorities emphasize fiscal reforms and improved revenue collection as the preferred tools for addressing deficits. This is an important point. It signals a commitment to stability over short-term budget fixes. For investors and observers of the Iraqi dinar, the key takeaway is this: the official rate remains stable at around 1,300. There has been no formal revaluation and no announced devaluation. The widening parallel market gap reflects temporary pressures and structural adjustments rather than a fundamental collapse in policy. But risks remain. Political tensions, especially those involving U.S.-Iraq relations and regional dynamics, can quickly affect market psychology. Banking reforms, while beneficial in the long term, can create short-term liquidity disruptions. And customs reforms, though aimed at strengthening revenue systems, can initially drive informal market activity. So what happens next? If political tensions ease, banking compliance stabilizes, and importers adapt to the new customs system, demand for parallel market dollars could decline. In that case, the street rate might gradually move closer to the official band. Historically, Iraq has worked to narrow this gap, and authorities appear committed to doing so again. However, if external shocks intensify, such as renewed political threats, oil price volatility, or broader regional instability, pressure on the parallel market could persist. In currency markets, perception often moves faster than policy. As always on Iraqi Dinar Intelligence, we encourage viewers to separate speculation from documented policy. The official peg is intact. Reserves remain high. The central bank continues to supply dollars through official channels. The parallel market weakness reflects stress points, but not necessarily structural collapse. The Iraqi economy is navigating a complex transition period, balancing reform, political negotiations, and external pressures. Currency stability is a central pillar of that transition. For now, the authorities' message is clear: stability over shock, reform over devaluation, and controlled adjustment rather than abrupt change. If you found this detailed breakdown helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and share Iraqi Dinar Intelligence with anyone who wants serious, fact-based updates on Iraq's monetary and economic landscape. Stay informed, stay analytical, and we'll continue bringing you the deeper story behind the headlines.